The Rock of Gibraltar has a cultural heritage as diverse as its small but cosmopolitan population, and which draws on influences from both Europe, North Africa, and even further afield. Steeped in history yet in tune with the modern world, Gibraltar is justly proud of its cultural scene. In today's episode, we find out more about Joe Adamberry and DJ Basscake. This is Access All Areas.
For me, performing has always been, I wouldn't say like a drug, but something that I know because I experienced that I could not live without it. I tried to live without performing for 9 months, way back when I got back from the UK, and I didn't succeed.
When I perform on a personal level, it's just like, I think it's just pure adrenaline. And I think anyone that plays out there can say that, whether it's, you know, you're a DJ, you're a singer, you play in a band, you're part of an orchestra. I just think it's pure adrenaline, at least it is for me.
My interest in music was, I think, listening to the old BBC World Service, tuning into a crackly radio and trying to listen to a Cliff Richard and the Shadows song in full, because you used to get all the crackles and pops. So it was a triumph if you heard the song in its entirety.
When I was just a little baby, I didn't have many toys, but my mama used to say, son, you got more than other boys. Now you
That was my first interest, you know, it was something that told me I want to do that.
Joe Adamberry started to have success in the early 60s, with his band The Silhouettes winning local competitions. In 1964, the Silhouettes left for the United Kingdom in search for fame and stardom, where they won a recording contract at a Southern Countries Beat group competition held in Southampton. Their Latin flair saw Philips' record label release 3 singles. The final one included Albert Hammond as the lead singer. The band changed names at various times to the G-Boys, Los Cinco Ricardos, Los Cinco, and Paper Dragon for their last ever single, called April Fool in 1967. Whilst doing the London cabaret circuit, they played for royalty and many celebrities, always capitalizing in their polished Latin-inspired pop music.
There was something about the sound of the guitar, and not having seen one that I liked, and I thought, gotta get one of these things. Then I saw on Spanish TV a group called Los TNT, who had the guitar the shape of an anchor. And that was the sound of the electric guitar, and that started my fascination with guitars, and persuaded my parents to go down to an old shop called Martin Osborne or something like that, in the bottom of Main Street, and on the tick, you know, you could pay it at 10 shillings a week or something. Got my first guitar, which I think cost £5. This talking about 1961, 62. At that time, the Diamond Boys had just started to rehearse at Humphreys. The Valerga brothers, and also Hubert Valverde and the Valverde brothers had started rehearsing. So everybody was in the process of trying to make bands. Albert Hammond and the Diamond Boys were the first off the mark, and I think they became professional in 1962 or something. But we were already well on our way to becoming a band with our sights set on performing, not forgetting our Latin roots, wanting to do rock and roll, and also wanted to hit the big time. So the chance came in 1964 when a guy from the UK came over and he said, "I'd like to sign you boys up and take you to the UK." We thought he was joking. We had a couple of drinks with the guy. He came good. He sent us our fares. In those days, you didn't travel by air. We traveled on the Oriana, and it took 3 or 4 days to get to Southampton. And that is when we set out, after really having had a grounding in nightclubs, in the old Polvorin, in the old Catholic United Services Club, and in various other dance halls. We had our grounding to learn to play a variety of music. So we set off and we said, right, let's hit the big time, let's see where we are. And we set off and we went to, we arrived in Portsmouth in November 1964. Totally green. We could play our instruments, but we weren't prepared for the rhythm and blues revolution that was on there and then. And we thought, the only way we're going to survive this is by staying different, you know, by staying Latin, singing in English, taking advantage of the language and using our Latin charm, if you like, our frilly shirts and stuff like that, you know, to woo them over. And we started to make headway, you know.
Afraid now these edges have been burned. It's the same, and it would happen to us in turn.
I first recall having an interest in music when I was about 2 or 3 years old. That's as far as I can remember. My mum says that when I was that age, I'd get into the car and I'd always ask for music, and if not, I would get really like, I'd throw a bit of a tantrum. Obviously, back then I'd listen to the stuff my parents would listen to, which was Queen, Freddie Mercury, Phil Collins or Genesis, Black Sabbath, The Who, Madonna, and the list is endless. So basically it was back then that I had a big interest in music. That's where it grew from, at least. In my family there's always been a big liking for music, and music's always been played at home. So I think I've been pretty much nurtured with music.
Cheryl Jeffries, also known as Basscake, is one of Gibraltar's biggest DJ exports. Her passion for drum and bass and hard work has not only helped her to form part of recognised local annual events such as the Electronic Music Festival, but has also taken her sets even further to international clubs and festivals all over the United Kingdom, Spain, Prague and Croatia, to mention a few. In 2016, Basscake was awarded Best Drum and Bass DJ at the annual International Breaks Awards.
The name Basscake came about, I don't know really, it just came about. I've always been a big fan of bass music and quite aggressive music. So bass is like something I really enjoy and love, and I've always been quite girly and quite dainty in another way. So I thought, Basscake sounds good. So yeah, I thought about that, and also I'm a big, I like cakes, so yeah, I don't know, that was it. I first started DJing, or had an interest in DJing, when I was about from 10 to 12. I'd listened to a lot of trance music, and I was very much into trance music back then. Then obviously when I started going out locally to a local club that was called Viva la Diva, my interest started growing into liking more of breakbeat, retro breakbeat type of music. And then obviously it evolved to drum and bass music. So I think the whole DJing bit started when I was 18, and it was when my parents bought me a pair of turntables for my birthday. So the whole DJing thing started back then, but I'd just play at home and amongst friends and stuff, because I was quite shy. Obviously I'd left for uni as well, so I kind of left all my turntables at home because I couldn't be carrying them backwards and forwards for the time I spent in the UK. So I kind of left it to one side, but then when I came back was when my interest started getting bigger and bigger. And it was in 2014 where I thought, you know, Cheryl, why stop being so shy and timid and just like have a bit more faith in yourself, believe more in yourself, and let's, you know, get to it. So that's when I started DJing more.
Albert Hammond and Richard Cartwright joined the band. Ernest Picardo had to come back to Gibraltar. We started writing our own songs, and we got a deal, and we did an album, but it never got off the shelves. It was never produced into an acetate. And in that period, we released, the earliest of our recordings was One Big Kiss. That was the A side. Something was the B side. That was My Brothers and I's song. And then we covered La Yenka at the time. And we also had our B side as original. And then the third song was called Too Big for Her Boots. And the song called April Fool, it was a novelty song. So we played April Fool, and then the opportunity came to record a Kinks song. The Kinks were involved in some sort of lawsuit, and Ray Davies could not promote the song. So we thought we'd be clever, let's record this song called The Most Exclusive Residence for Sale. Albert Hammond on lead vocals, we were on harmony, supporting vocals. I remember the gear that we used in those days. I used to have a Gretsch Chet Atkins and a Vox AC30. No pedals, no nothing, just the Vox going at as full tilt as possible, to get some sort of distortion on it. And we made a good record of that, and it's still on YouTube. People can actually tune in, put Most Exclusive Residence for Sale, and you'll see the record spinning, Los Cincos. We nearly got into the top 40. And then it fizzled out. And then that's as far as the recording career went. We never went any further than that. Then we started, just working the band, working the cabarets. And I stayed in the UK working with Los Cincos until 1969, when my son was born and he was about 6 months old. I decided I wanted to come back to Gibraltar. It wasn't fun anymore, what we were doing wasn't getting us where I wanted to be, and so I left, and Los Cincos carried on for another year, doing the same sort of work. They worked in Guernsey, they did their holiday camps, we did holiday camps as well, so we worked quite a lot.
Well, I think in the short period that I've been playing for, I think I've lived quite a few good experiences, and I'm going to have loads of memories that I'm going to be cherishing forever. I've happened to have the privilege to play at the local Gibraltar Electronic Music Festival since they started doing it, and to be honest, it's always one of my favourite festivals to play at. To just go there and see, obviously Gibraltar's very small, so you kind of know everyone, and just see loads of people that maybe don't even listen to drum and bass usually, or maybe don't even like drum and bass, but they just go there and support you. And last year, I remember I was playing and the stage was absolutely packed. It was packed, and I just remember everyone saying, "Oh my God, Cheryl, the main stage is just empty and everyone's just here and outside by the corridors listening to you." And I was like, "Really?" And everyone was like, "Yeah." And then after during the event, after my set, so many people came up saying, "Oh, we've really enjoyed your set, that was a sick set." And obviously that, that motivates me quite a bit. So yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite places. I've also played in many venues in Spain. I've played in Bristol in the UK. I recently came back from Prague from playing at Cross Club with Drum Bass Express Girls, a collective I'm part of. And that was just simply amazing. That place is breathtaking. If you guys can go there. And then I played in Toulouse back in February. So yeah, the list keeps on growing, and hopefully it will continue to grow.
silence is the real. Wide not the drill. Run it live, certified, straight into your mind. Still your mind, 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 still your mind. Break the silence is the real, the real, the real.
My DJing style, I think I'm going to say I kind of like more of the techie, deep, neuro drum and bass music. Drum and bass is like really, really big and it's like a huge spectrum, but I'm not going to like contain myself to one specific subgenre. I'm just going to say I'm a big fan and lover of drum and bass.
I came back under under the false impression that I would be able to not have to play music professionally anymore. Maybe I'm done with music. And I stayed 9 months working as the Pigalle manager in the old casino, but there were bands there. And I had just come back from a professional band, so people like Douglas Gio, people like Robert Imossi, the Mockingbirds, Pepe Giliano, and all these people, I could teach them things and help them along, little chords and stuff like that, little tricks that we knew. And eventually I got myself drawn back into the music scene. And I thought, well, you know, I think we have to form a dance band here. And what happened was that I fell in with Francis Cipollina, with Brian Torres, the late Tony Mifsud, and myself. And they were the Latin trio, and I was nothing. And we said, right, let's form a band. And we started singing the Bee Gees stuff, you know, and the Bee Gees heyday. We went more into dance, providing music for dancing and for weddings. When Horizon was formed, it was a 4-piece. So, and when Seen and Heard finished their stint, we recruited Guy Palmer. And of course, we could all sing, so we could really capitalize on, you know, on harmony songs for weddings, you know. So, but there comes a time in life, and I have to say that at this point, that I remember feeling later on in life, jumping ahead, thinking that I'm nearly as old as the father of the bride, so I don't think there's any, it doesn't make any sense for the bride and bridegroom to be dancing, you know, to people who are as old as, or even perhaps older than their parents, you know. I think Horizon reached about 25 years, maybe, not more, not as After Hours who have reached 30. I think perhaps we hit 25 or thereabouts, you know. But we went round the houses, you know, we did a lot of gigs, had a lot of fun, and we never recorded. Unfortunately, we always talked about all these recordings we were going to do and never did them.
There's not much of a big drum and bass scene locally. There's more of like a techno house scene locally. But yeah, I've played quite a few venues. As a drum and bass DJ, I'd like to perform more locally, but obviously the crowd's not big enough and there's not so much of a demand. So yeah, there's a bit of lack in drum and bass. I've got lots of musical influences because I like all sorts of music, but mainly my passion and my love is stronger for drum and bass. But I'm a big fan of metal music and rock music as well. I also like my old school hip hop, but my musical influences, drum and bass wise, are Guitarist, DLR, Signal, Subtle Elements, Archaic, Rizzle, Brethren, Calyx and TB have always been one of my favourites, Noisia. The list is really, really, really big and I could just be here forever. And like band-wise, I've always been a huge fan, and I still am, of Tool, which is my favourite band. A Perfect Circle, obviously, because of Maynard. Fear Factory, Sepultura, Metallica, loads of them. So that's quite, you know, kind of my influences.
My influences are many. Nowadays, I couldn't even begin. I'm very rounded, and I am conscious that I have to be rounded because I like blues a lot. I like the concept of Pink Floyd, you know, and I like what Pink Floyd doesn't exist anymore. But David Gilmour is a huge idol of mine. You know, Joe Bonamassa, whom I followed from early on, is another huge idol of mine. Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, all these people remain influences because all of them have something quirky. Lead guitarists are kindred spirits, and they all have something about them which makes them unique, you know, and every one of them, you watch a gig and you think, this is how he does it, you know, this is what he does, and you learn, and you know, I keep an open diary, and I always try to see legends. I have a bucket list, you know, there's a number of people I still want to see.
Dreams and ambitions, obviously everyone likes to dream and aim for reach for the stars and aim for like really high. So I've always been that type of person. I always like to reach for the stars and work for what I want.
I have still to publish poetry. I write poetry, and I think I have 60 or 70 poems. The balance between them is perhaps Llanito Spanish, 50%, or maybe 60-40. 60 being English, 40% Spanish. And if I do a book, which I will at some point, even if it's only for the family, it will be, you know, a Spanish poem and an English poem.
Gibraltar is quite a small place, but it's rich in culture, be it heritage or arts or like music or, you know, you name it. It's quite a cultural place. I just wish there would be more of a thing for DJing locally, and that maybe more kids started having an interest in DJing, and that would be really cool.
I think that the local scene is very healthy at the moment, because on the one hand we have an established band like After Hours who have proved that by sticking at it and doing things well and honestly, they've just given us 30 years of wonderful music, you know. That's on the one hand. Then you've got little Lila Rose, you know, with her band Country, and Undesirable 141s. We needed something like this in our scene, you know, because it can't all be thrash metal or very loud music that you can't really get to grips with musically, you know. I'm not putting down any of the other genres. What I'm saying is that Dead City Radio do what they do very well, and I like them to be there at one end of the spectrum. I like the Dumas boys very well. I think you know, Simon and the gang are doing extremely well. Jetstream I love as well, you know. They killed the song festival, and I was there, and I was so proud, you know, that a local song won it hands down, you know. They had a good song and they did it well. These bands all have put in a different little chip into put in their chip into the local music scene, and it all adds up. And I think our scene is quite good.